Do you know what animal can sleep for 3 years without eating? Neither did I until I started hosting 5 daily trivia questions. Hi, I'm Mark Ellison. Every weekday, I'll challenge you with 5 brain-bending questions spanning history, pop culture, science, and more. Perfect for your morning commute or lunch break. 5 daily trivia questions. And by the way, it's the snail that can sleep for 3 years. 5 daily trivia questions wherever you get your shows.
Calaroga Shark Media.
Pope Leo the Fourteenth, the first American pontiff, celebrated his inaugural Mass in St. Peter's Square on Sunday before tens of thousands of faithful. The Vatican reported approximately 200,000 people attended the Mass at St. Peter's Square on Sunday, marking the beginning of the pontificate of the first American to lead the Roman Catholic Church. World leaders including Vice President JD Vance and senior church officials gathered under the Roman sun for the outdoor ceremony that officially installed Leo the Fourteenth as shepherd of 1.4 billion Roman Catholics worldwide. This is white smoke. Echoing messages from his predecessor, Pope Francis, who passed away in April, Leo the Fourteenth used this solemn occasion to advocate for peace in Ukraine, Gaza, and Myanmar, as he became the 267th leader of the Roman Catholic Church. Leo the Fourteenth emphasized that his priority was for the Church to maintain its evangelization mission while creating an inclusive path for all believers. He stressed that evangelization is never a question of capturing others by force, by religious propaganda, or by means of power, but through love. Distinguished attendees included Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, and Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, all of whom travelled to Rome for the historic Mass. The new pontiff greeted these dignitaries personally, including Vance and Zelensky, with whom he was scheduled to meet later that day. Vance's Vatican visit represents a potential new beginning for the previously tense relationship between the papacy and conservative American Catholics. 4 weeks earlier, Vance had met with Francis, who had publicly criticized his theological views and immigration stance. Sunday's ceremony saw him greeting a new leader who appears to share many of his predecessors' perspectives, including previous direct criticism of Vance through a now-removed social media account linked to his name. Beyond politics, the ceremony featured rich religious symbolism, with Leo the Fourteenth wearing traditional white vestments and appearing deeply moved at various moments. He prayed in Latin to be a worthy successor to St. Peter, whom Christian tradition holds was chosen by Jesus as the Church's first leader. Pope Leo prayed before sprinkling water toward the gathered faithful as a remembrance of baptism. Following the Gloria hymn of praise, additional prayers and several biblical readings were shared with the congregation. As part of the sacred installation rites, Cardinal Luis Antonio Gokim Tagle placed the Fisherman's ring on Pope Leo the Fourteenth's finger. The new pontiff also received the pallium, a white vestment with 2 pendants worn across the shoulders, adorned with crosses representing Jesus' wounds. It's crafted from white wool through an elaborate process where the lambs are traditionally blessed before being sheared, similar to the vestments given to archbishops at their ordination. Pastor means shepherd in Latin, and scriptures often refer to the Good Shepherd who gives his life for his flock, symbolizing the crucifixion of Jesus and of Peter, who was martyred. The Fisherman's ring recalls the Gospel passage where Jesus appeared to the apostles after his resurrection following their unsuccessful night of fishing. Jesus instructed Peter to cast in a specific location, and the nets strained with numerous large fish, some of which the apostles then shared with Jesus during a lakeside breakfast. An image of Peter with the net, representing the Church's evangelization mission and its unity, is engraved on the ring alongside the Pope's name. When a pope dies, the ring is crossed over, so it can no longer function as a seal for papal documents. At the beginning of the celebration, both ring and pallium are carried from the chapel of St. Peter's tomb, located beneath the basilica, where the Pope prays accompanied by the patriarchs of Eastern Rite Catholic churches, and then out to the altar arranged in St. Peter's Square. During the ceremony, the choir performed in Greek before a couple representing the sacrament of marriage approached the Pope. 2 children, symbolizing all the world's children, also paid tribute to the new Holy Father. Pope Leo the 14th greeted everyone gathered with a heart full of gratitude, before sharing a message written by St. Augustus. He then acknowledged how Pope Francis's death had filled our hearts with sadness. With humility, Leo the 14th stated he was chosen with no merit of my own to become the new leader of the Catholic Church, as the conclave was placed in God's hands. In his homily, he expressed his intention to be a servant of your faith and joy, and for the Church to remain united during a time of violence, prejudice, fear of difference, and an economic paradigm that exploits the world's resources and marginalizes the poorest. During his homily, Leo the 14th remarked that the cardinals who elected him sought a shepherd capable of preserving the rich heritage of the Christian faith and, at the same time, looking to the future in order to confront the questions, concerns and challenges of today's world. He observed that, in this our time, we still see too much discord, too many wounds caused by hatred, violence, prejudice, the fear of difference, and an economic paradigm that exploits the Earth's resources and marginalizes the poorest. Sunday's Mass concluded a dramatic period for the Vatican that began with Francis's death on April 21st, followed by his funeral 5 days later. The subsequent conclave of cardinals commenced on May 7th and ended the next day when white smoke appeared above the Sistine Chapel, signaling the selection of a new pope. Since his election, Leo the 14th, born as Robert Francis Prevost in Chicago and known to friends as Bob, has warned about artificial intelligence risks and called for ending conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza. Last week he expressed personal commitment to helping resolve the Ukrainian war. He reiterated this peace message at the Mass's conclusion, urging Catholics to remember those suffering in global conflicts. In Gaza, the surviving children, families, older people are reduced to hunger, he stated. In Myanmar, new hostilities have broken young innocent lives. Regarding Ukraine, he emphasized it awaits negotiations for a fair and lasting peace. Before the ceremony, the pontiff made his inaugural journey through St. Peter's Square in an open-top Pope mobile, acknowledging the cheering crowds. The Vatican implemented attendance limits for St. Peter's Square, similar to precautions taken during Francis's funeral on April 26th and the subsequent conclave, to prevent overcrowding incidents. On Tuesday, the Holy Father will make a pilgrimage to the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls, where he will visit the tomb of St. Paul. On Sunday, which is the 6th Sunday of Easter, Pope Leo the 14th will preside over a Eucharistic celebration at the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran at 5 p.m. This Mass will include the formal installation of the Pope on the Cathedra Romana, the episcopal see of the Bishop of Rome. Later that evening, at 7 p.m, the Pope will visit the Basilica of St. Mary Major, where he will venerate the revered icon of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Salus Populi Romani. This will be the Pope's second stop at the Marian Basilica. Finally, on Saturday, May 31st, the Feast of the Visitation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, Pope Leo the 14th will preside over Mass with priestly ordinations in St. Peter's Basilica. In the book A Reporter at the Papal Court, published in 1937, Thomas B. Morgan described Pope Pius XI's inauguration ceremony in 1922 as more dazzling and colourful than the coronation of England's king. One spectacular element would have been the papal coronation moment. From the 12th century until Pope Paul VI discontinued using the papal crown in 1964, the installation Mass featured a solemn ritual where the pontiff was crowned with an elaborate gold and jewel-encrusted tiara. According to Dr. Stefano Sanchirico, co-author of a book on papal rituals, the Pope would not wear the tiara during liturgical ceremonies, but only when entering and exiting certain solemn ceremonies. Paul VI stopped using the tiara, choosing instead to wear a mitre, as his successors have continued to do. That papal tiara eventually made its way to the United States, where it currently resides in the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. During his inauguration mass on October 22, 1978, Pope John Paul II acknowledged that popes had been crowned in the past, but insisted attention should be directed elsewhere. This is not the time to return to a ceremony and an object considered wrongly to be a symbol of the temporal power of the popes, he stated. Archival footage provides glimpses of these ceremonies' magnificence. A 1939 film documenting Pope Pius XII's coronation shows cheering crowds in St. Peter's Square as he was carried on an elevated throne through the basilica's atrium. The Pope then proceeded to a balcony where the crowning took place. A film of Pope John XXIII's coronation in 1958 captures his crowning moment, with the narrator proclaiming him the Vicar of Christ on earth. Eliminating the crown wasn't the only way Paul VI sought to modernize the church. He also relocated the ceremony outdoors to the area in front of the basilica, where he was carried through the gathering on a raised throne by Sidiari, a lay brotherhood that continues serving in the Vatican. They were the pallbearers who carried Pope Francis's coffin.
There's always something brewing behind palace walls, whether it's Prince Harry and Meghan Markle making headlines from afar, or Prince William and Princess Catherine quietly preparing for the future throne. I'm Mark Francis, and on Palace Intrigue, we cover every twist, turn, whisper, and wink. From royal drama to daily gossip, follow Palace Intrigue wherever you get your podcasts.